everyone, and welcome to a next episode of the Sacred Soul podcast. Today we're here with Emma. She is a fitness industry veteran and she is a Pilates and yoga teacher, amongst many other things. She's got her own yoga and CPD courses, and she's dipped her toe into lots of different areas in the fitness industry over the years. So welcome, Emma. Thank you for coming. Just wanted to ask if you would be able to give us a little introduction.
Yeah, sure. I've been in the health, fitness and wellness industry for nearly 3 decades now, 28 years. Even kind of longer back than that. I was 8 years old when I started working with the body, doing ballet till about the age of 16. And did all my sort of Royal Academy of Dancing exams. And I also did gymnastics. So I kind of had a really early sort of grounding into working with the body. And when I was 24, I moved down to London with my boyfriend, got a job in a bank, kind of hated it. It was kind of soul destroying. And my partner at the time, he said, well, what would you do? If you could do anything, what would you do? And I said, well, I'd probably just go back to my dancing again. So the next night he brought in the London course guide, and I kind of looked at it and I found an exercise to music course, which is kind of the old aerobics qualification. This is back in 1994. And I didn't have any money to buy the course. So my mum sent some money down, and that was kind of the start of it. And after that, it was just, once you're in the industry, it just opens up this whole pathway to you. So I then went and got a job. I remember teaching like a legs, bums and tums body conditioning class in London, in Victoria. And they asked me to teach a step class, and I wasn't certified in steps. So I then kind of did a qualification in step, and I met loads of people who were on the personal trainer's diploma, and they were doing step module as part of it. So I thought, well, why not? I'll just sign up for that. So I became a personal trainer. Then that led on to cardiac rehab qualifications, then a gyrokinesis qualification. And then back in 2006, I did my Pilates as well in 1996, mat and reformer. But then in 2006, it kind of sort of changed route a little bit. I fancied going to do yoga. My mother had died 2 years before that, and I got left a little bit of money. So I wanted to go to do yoga in the place where the birthplace of yoga, to India, the source of it. So I took a trip with some friends to the Himalayas, and that was kind of life-changing in many respects, because that was the start of my yoga journey, which was 17 years or so ago. I met my second husband there, who was an Australian guy, and he taught me a lot about business as well. He was in business himself. And so I was kind of back and forwards to Australia for the next 7 years until that relationship faded out. But in that time, I did lots of yoga training. We traveled to Mysore together. We did the Ashtanga training. So there's lots of different types of training. I did the Kundalini yoga teacher training, aerial yoga teacher training, various different methods. And every time I kind of went to India to either do a training or to visit, it was like, I don't know, it's a weird feeling. It's like I step off the plane and it's like I'm home. It's a feeling that this is where I belong. And if I go to Spain or any of the places that I might regularly go to, I don't get that feeling. I just get the feeling of, yay, I'm on holiday. But India is so different. And honestly, if you've never been to India,
no, we haven't, have we?
Yeah.
No,
It honestly, a little bit of magic of India, it can't help but touch your soul. The people are just some of the nicest humans on the planet. Honestly, they're so gracious. They've literally got nothing, some of them, but they're so friendly, they're welcoming. And I think that's part of the beauty of it, apart from all of the yoga philosophy, etc. So every year I return, and I was back in 2020. I'd already been running instructor training courses really since 2007. So this is 13 years on. And I was just running Pilates, conditioning, bar, instructor training courses. And one of my students, long-term students who comes to my studio to do yoga, she said, would you run a yoga teacher training course? And people had asked me in the past, and I'd always said, no, I'm not going to run a yoga teacher training course. But a few years earlier, I'd done another yoga teacher training. I'd done a Kundalini. So I had my initial Shivananda 200-hour qualification. I'd done the Ashtanga Yoga Foundation, the aerial. And the Kundalini just kind of prepared me a little bit more. It gave me a little bit more understanding, because yoga is such a misunderstood, I'm going to say method, that's the wrong word, but in the West, it's become is a physical practice in the West.
And it's just a trendy thing to do
now. It's like gimmicky now,
Yeah, and Instagram doesn't help. Because Instagram, everybody's doing, all the difficult poses on the beach as a lovely backdrop, and it just kind of perpetuates that incorrect image of the essence of yoga, which is really
perfection, which is what it does kind of make you feel like you need to be perfect or have a perfect body before you can even start to do it. But
even that the perception of the body, it's about the body, is really incorrect. I mean, you go to India, there'll be yoga teacher training courses that just teach the breath work. There's not an asana, a pose among it. Most people come to yoga because of the physical practice, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a great practice, and it's really great for your body. But as long as people don't have the misconception that that is what yoga is, because it's not. Yoga's about the mind.
Spiritual practice, isn't it? Ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, it's a way of life, for sure. Eating right, sleeping right, you have the right attitude, adopting good habits. But yoga is essentially about the mind. And everything we do is to really work towards controlling the mind, or not allowing the mind to control us, because we're bigger than the mind.
Elevating consciousness, isn't it? It's about kind of changing your consciousness and kind of reaching those states of consciousness where you're enlightened and or where you're feeling that you're connecting to the divine in some way.
Yeah, that's right. And people think that enlightenment occurs, or we go to heaven or whatever when we die. And actually, the concept of actually heaven on earth, what they call samadhi, bliss, enlightenment, nirvana, whatever you want to call it, is the recognition that we are one with source, with the divine, oneness, the end of duality, if you like. And that's quite a hard concept for people to grasp, that you're one with the divine, you're the same energy. I mean, the very word yoga, it comes from the word yug, meaning to unite. It means you're uniting your individual soul consciousness with the divine consciousness. So oneness, and kind of think of it like this. Think of an ocean. And in an ocean, there's many waves. So there's one wave over here, which is a little wave, looking at a huge, massive wave over there. Think, oh, that's a very big wave over there. I'm just a little wave over here, but actually I'm bigger than that tiny wave over there. And it's kind of how we see ourselves, as individual waves. And the point where enlightenment or samadhi occurs is when it's like that light bulb went, oh my God, I am the ocean. We are all
exactly that. We're all the energy that we're vibrating on, aren't we? And
that's right. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, you're talking about vibration and energy there, Faye. And that is really what we're trying to get over to people, that we are beings of energy.
Yeah.
But people like to think of themselves as flesh and blood and bone and matter. But actually, when you break it down, and quantum science is now supporting this theory, so it's not a woo-woo concept that the yogis have known for 5,000 plus years. Modern science is now verifying that we are beings of energy, because when you break us down, to our tiniest part, we're made up of molecules. If you break down, the atom, if you break down the atom, you get protons, neutrons, electrons, the smaller subatomic particles. And if you break down that, you get the tiniest particle, which is now called a quark. But inside of that is just pure energy.
Wow.
So everything is energy, light, sound, us, and our body is nothing more than energy that is compressed and condensed enough to form physical matter. But at the very core, we are, that pure being of energy. It's just the matter is condensed enough so that we appear solid. But if you put your hand under a high-powered microscope, you'd see it's a mass of energy, cells vibrating at a very rapid rate. But trying to get that across to people is a very, very difficult subject indeed, that we're, vibrating energy, and that we can change the vibration that we, the energy that we emit. So when we talk about like a spiritual practice, we talk about raising our vibration. How do we do that? Well, there's various ways that you can raise your vibration. Meditation is one of the main ones. Breath work, deep breathing, and in fact, in Kundalini practice, one of the main breath work practices to get into an altered state, a different state of consciousness other than our waking state, is alternate nostril breathing.
Yeah, I've done a bit of that before in a yoga class. It is quite powerful, actually.
Yeah, you can get an experience of transcendence, an experience of something that is other than your third dimension material reality. And it's very difficult to kind of put an experience of transcendence or oneness into words, because it's kind of like explaining colors to a blind person. Where do you start? How do you describe the color red if you're blind? Or trying to explain the taste of chocolate to somebody that had never had sweet food before. It's an experience that is not of the ordinary levels of reality. Some people might have that experience if they're on drugs or LSD, like they would in shamanic practices, where they take ayahuasca, or the plant-based herbal medicine. There's a different experience of reality other than
consciousness.
What we know. So the goal is to try to raise your vibration. So breath work, meditation, exercise, gratitudes, positive journaling, random acts of kindness, and of course, the kind of things that you eat, raw honey, nuts, seeds, fresh fruit and veg, untampered food.
Actual whole foods. I think that's the other thing, isn't it, that people take for granted as well, which I suppose when you're more involved in fitness, you become more aware of, is the fuel that you're putting into your body. What you're feeding your body is actually feeding your soul, isn't it? It's actually feeding the whole essence of who you are. And I mean, we all live, especially in the Western world, we live on absolute rubbish most of the time, don't we?
Isn't it? For
Convenience food. It's very much grab what you can when you can, especially when you're busy and you have all these life expectations of running around and doing things.
And then, like you say, with the yoga as well, people are doing all that, eating all the wrong foods, and then think they can just show up to a yoga class and everything's fine, and their body will just be in a great place, when really that's not.
It's the whole thing.
It's the whole act of eating well, and
it's a way of life. You know what? And I've spent a month in India. I just got back actually a week ago, and
I saw that you've been teaching at an ashram, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been teaching at ashram. I took my group of instructors. We had a little kind of tour around India after that. and now I'm back, and it's kind of my heart's still over there.
Yeah.
I met with a couple of gurus who kind of, they sort of like almost like prophets, and a couple of them said, you're a spiritual leader, you need to take it to the next level. And I got home and I thought, what on earth am I doing? I just want to get on a plane and go back there, because I feel so light inside. I feel clean, because we have a sattvic diet in the ashram, which means it's just the word for pure diet. So there's no spices. It's a very, very bland. So there's nothing to excite your system.
What kind of things would you eat?
So it's Indian vegetarian food. But it's, so you'll have rice, you'll have dal, like a lentil dal. You'll have chapatis, the bread, you'll have a papadum. You'll have a vegetable side dish, and there may be mild spices in there, but there's nothing hot, or there's nothing
what you traditionally expect to be in Indian food.
Yeah, in an ashram, that's basically it. So it's called a sattvic diet, pure food, nothing to excite your system, nothing that grows in the dark, so no mushrooms, nothing that grows underground, and just kind of water. So after having had that and doing yoga and meditation several times a day, you feel just totally different. And coming back to the West, where there's all the temptations, you go out, you socialize with friends, you go out for a nice meal. The temptations are really difficult to have some wine and, go back to a normal diet. I mean, I've been back a week now, and I made a decision when I was out there, I'm going to cut down on, drinking wine, because it's one of the things I really enjoy, and, try to keep to a vegetarian diet. And I've done that for a week. And I think, I'm not sure now if I just go just cold turkey, rather than kind of reducing.
Well, that's what I did. I haven't had a drink since last year in September, but for health reasons, because obviously, as you know, because I've known Emma a while, because we met on a gong retreat, didn't we?
Yeah.
And we sort of kept in touch. But I've been quite unwell this last year, this last few years actually, with various different things. But I cut alcohol out completely, because for me it was an inflammatory, and it was just making all my autoimmune issues and gut issues 100 times worse, including the heart things that were going on. So I've literally stopped completely. And I can say it makes a massive difference.
Well, I've gone plant-based mainly with a lot of my meals as well, because I'm breastfeeding and my baby's got a lot of allergies.
Right.
I'm just literally living on the very basic like whole foods, aren't I? Really,
because her baby's allergic to soya.
Can't have soya, so I can't have any meat alternatives or anything like that, because they're all soya based. Can't have any dairy, can't have anything with coconut in. So it's cut down my diet really massively, but it has made a big difference to how I feel, because I'm eating a lot more fresh food and making things from scratch. So it is, like you say, it makes such a difference,
doesn't it?
And where I struggle is with food. See, the alcohol was easier for me to eliminate, even though I did like a drink. Anyone that knows me could attest to it.
We used to love a wine, didn't we, in an evening.
And I do miss it. Psychologically, I miss that, the social aspect of it. But it's the food for me. I crave sugar a lot, and I think that's because I've always got no energy because of the fibromyalgia. I always feel like I've got no energy all the time. Right. So I find that really difficult. I try to eat as plant-based as I possibly can, but again, I'm anemic, so I have to have some iron of some description, even though I can get that from plants. I can't actually take heme iron because my body just doesn't absorb it for whatever reason, which is bizarre.
So have you cut out sugar as well then?
I've tried to, but I do have the odd day, because as I'm a lady of that certain age, I'm also going through the change at the moment as well. So at the moment I'm having these, massive gaps in, not having periods and then just craving sugar. So there'll be times when, like, as a human being, we are a human being having this experience, or spiritual being having this human experience, aren't we? There's temptation, as you said. And there's times when I am desperate for a chocolate or, something sweet,
Yeah.
And it's so hard. It really is.
Well, I've got a terrible sweet tooth. I've had, my gran worked in a sweet shop when I was a kid, and she brings home so I blame her. But it's the one thing that I think, oh my God, something to look forward to, because food and drink is a real pleasure, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
But from a yogic perspective, you're not eating for pleasure, you're eating for sustenance, right?
Exactly. And it's about non-attachment, isn't it? Not being attached to anything,
really.
Yeah, it's definitely non-attachment. And like all of the yogi masters say, a master is detached. Because the part of the yoga philosophy is the five senses, the world of the five senses, create drives and desires. We label things we like that, we don't like that, and we chase after the things that we like. Oh, I want that chocolate, I want that wine, and that kind of drives you. Because you're attached to the idea that you like a glass of wine, or you like a coffee, or whatever it is you like in the morning or in the evening. You're attached to that, and that kind of drives your behavior instead of you being in control.
100%. And that kind of drives your id and your ego kind of impulses, doesn't it? When you're looking at it from Freudian terms and from the psychological aspect of things, it's very much you're following your ego desires rather than sitting with self, if that makes sense. So but it is hard. It's very, very hard.
It's hard in the West. It's easy to have that diet when you're in yoga, in an ashram.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but we don't live in an ashram. We in everyday life, do we? We've got screaming kids around us and people pissing us off all day.
I know. That's it. And I think, maybe I'm just not the type of person to reduce things, because I know if I have a drink now, I'll probably then think, oh, well, you've just had a drink, you may as well have another one. Next week or whatever. And I had an experience in April. My split up with my partner, and he left our house, this house, in January of this year, and we had a dog together, which we'd had for a couple of years, and initially we shared the dog, but then we realized, this isn't going to work. And I remember he said to me one Sunday night, this isn't working, somebody's going to have the dog. You will have to have a chat. And I said, okay, then I kind of shut the door, and I thought, I know it's not me who's going to have the dog. And I knew that for a couple of reasons. I was going to India for a month. I'm an extremely busy person. I haven't got time to walk a cocker spaniel for 2 hours a day. I just haven't got that amount of time. But mainly, actually, what I thought is I'd kind of done my numerology path, and my life path is a 9-year, and the theme is about letting go. So I knew I had to let go.
Completion as well. It's coming to completion ends, isn't it? Tying up loose ends. And
but this is my life path. It's not my numerological year. This is the theme throughout my entire life. And so I knew it was me. And I thought, right, okay, I'm not going to see the dog for a week. It would be my turn at the end of that week. And I just thought, don't get in touch. Just don't get in touch. And then I thought, well, if he gets in touch, then maybe I'm meant to see the dog, but he didn't. And that was April, and it's September now, and I haven't seen the dog, and I haven't made contact. It was literally
a complete cut off.
And I think, I've been back a week. I haven't had a drink. I think about the attachment. I think about my yoga journey, about taking it to the next level. And I know it will interfere with any kind of kundalini rising, that spiritual energy of consciousness. Because if you've got toxins in the body, what you're trying to do in yoga is trying to cleanse everything so you can, have an experience of transcendence, of oneness. I've had it before, and I don't think I'm as clean as I was then. And so I think if I can start to do more breath work, do more meditation, and mantra, because they're the 3 key practices. It's not the poses themselves, but the more advanced practices that take you to a deeper level of the mind, and an experience of the nature of true reality, which is oneness. We are the ocean.
And it's an unusual experience, isn't it? Because I've actually felt that before through different work. Obviously, because as you know, I do mediumship and that kind of thing. So, and I do a lot of trance work. And I've actually have had that experience where I've transcended and I've felt my physical body fall away and floating into just nothingness, really. Just nothingness. It's the most bizarre feeling, but it's very fleeting, and it's very hard to get back there once you've come out of it again. It's very hard to get back there.
Yeah, and it is that is it, Faye. It's hard to get back there. And I think one of the things that they're saying is you have to cleanse the nadis, which is your energy channels, or what the Chinese would call meridians.
Yeah.
And within those meridians, your chi, from a Chinese perspective, will flow, or from a yogic perspective, the prana.
Yeah.
Which is basically your life force energy flows through these invisible channels.
How do we do that, Emma? How could we start that process as, like, for the listeners here, how could they start that process of cleansing their meridians? And
so
I've heard EFT is quite good for that.
Sorry?
I've heard the EFT, the emotional freedom.
Because it's all down to the chakras, which is basically your main energy channels. There are lots of chakras. We know the main ones is the main seven, from the base of the spine to the crown of the head. Working on those different chakras to cleanse them requires, each chakra requires a certain amount of work and a certain type of work. So let's say, for example, you start at the base, because that's where your spiritual journey starts, at the
that's your root, isn't it, where you're grounded?
The root. And so that corresponds to your organs of elimination, your hips, your legs, the base of the spine. So each chakra will govern a particular area of the body that corresponds to that. And think of chakras, chakra means wheel or vortex. It's a spinning energy that's kind of sending energy to all the different parts of the body. So the base is sending it to the legs, the hips, the base of the spine, and your organs of elimination. And think of it like this. I like to kind of use this analogy. In fact, I'm going to give you two for your listeners so they can maybe understand it a little bit more. So imagine you're in the garden and you've got your garden hose and you're watering your plants or your flowers. And then the flowers are really flourishing, blossoming in the sunlight. And then somebody comes along and stands on the garden hose. And so now the water isn't getting through. Okay. So now the plant starts to kind of wither and wilt and droop a little, because it's not getting the nourishment that it needs. So the health of the plant is kind of affected in the same way as that we have an energy blockage in the first chakra, then we can get problems with our organs of elimination. We might get some hip problems or problems with the legs because the energy isn't flowing as it should. So we don't have optimal health in terms of physical, psychological, spiritual health, emotional health. Another way, or probably more accurately what you would say now, rather than a blockage of energy, the energy of consciousness, the energy of awareness, it's like we haven't gone online. It's like part of that chakra, the reason the energy isn't there is because the awareness and the consciousness isn't there. So it's kind of offline. And so we do practices to bring it online, whether that's kind of movement-based practices, engaging pelvic floor where the kundalini is, breath work, all of that, all these different kind of yogic practices to stimulate the energy to start switching back on, coming online. Why does the energy go offline in the first place? Well, you mentioned earlier, emotions is one of the big reasons that energy is not there and flowing as it should. It's not online, because particularly in the West, we tend to not process our emotions very well, stiff upper lip, never let them see you cry and all that crap. No wonder where you've got mental health issues. And people don't deal with their emotions. If somebody's angry with something, either they suppress it, and anything you suppress is a funny habit of coming out at the most, like
a blocked drain, isn't it?
Or we project. you know, and we just bite somebody's head off. We don't process our emotions really well. And, you know, if, for example, our heart chakra, closes down, and that will generally close down because we've had some kind of loss. Somebody's died, whether it's a person or a pet. You've had some kind of loss. And the heart closes down, and that's not necessarily a conscious thing, although it is in some people. Don't go there, they just don't want to talk about it. It's too painful. But mostly it's unconscious, the heart armors up to prevent, any further hurt. And when it closes down, a bit like a kind of petal closing, the energy isn't circulating there. And so what happens is, instead of us getting the good qualities of that chakra when it's in balance, which would be for the heart, joy, love, peace, harmony, balance, compassion, kindness, gratitude, forgiveness. When it's not in, when a chakra is out of balance, you get the shadow qualities when the energy isn't flowing. So you get the opposite. You get unforgiveness, bitterness, jealousy, resentment, grief, sadness, And so if I often say to people, okay, well, you need to do a little bit of forgiveness work because you're holding on to resentment and bitterness towards this person. Oh, I can't forgive. And what they don't realize is that they're actually hurting themselves because their heart's closed down. So they can never experience the good qualities of joy and happiness and kindness and gratitude.
And what I love about all of these kind of techniques and like yoga and Pilates and Ayurveda and all of these other kinds of philosophies, they all have a very strong mental health aspect attached to them. I mean, as a qualified psychotherapist myself, I'm listening to you, you're talking about yoga and you're talking about all these things, and you've got all this wisdom and knowledge also about the psychology underpinning of it. And that's not something that you've studied per se separately, but it's because these philosophies, they hold an intrinsic part of our own wisdom and knowledge developing, and us, opening ourselves up psychologically. And that's when I first got interested in chakras, when I was working as a psychotherapist, because we had a lot of people coming in with a lot of woundings and addictions. And again, it's all root chakra stuff, a lot of maternal, woundings from their parents, again, all root chakra stuff, because, you're coming from that ancestry kind of thing, womb attachments. And it's so interesting how all these different philosophies have all a very similar kind of way about working with people, not just looking at the main presenting thing, but going down into the root cause of the problem and treating it holistically.
Yeah. And you've hit the nail on the head there. It's going to the root of the issue. Our modern social and cultural structures now have taken us so far away, from our natural way of being, hundreds of years ago. Indigenous tribes now, thank God there's still some left around the world, still have this innate inner wisdom, knowing that they can heal themselves via these ancient practices, which are still obviously surviving today. But in our modern society, particularly Western medicine now, in the UK now, the answer is, okay, we'll either cut it out, we'll give you an operation,
take a pill,
or we'll put a sticking plaster on it. We'll give you these drugs, these antidepressants, this medication. Who's benefiting here? Big pharma, of course,
exactly.
As always. To mask we'll treat the symptoms, to mask the issue, but you're not getting to the root cause.
Exactly.
And that's it. And society is,
we're handing that responsibility over to them, aren't we? Because by doing that, we're giving them responsibility of us, instead of us looking at where the problem is arising from and taking responsibility and owning, if it is a psychological thing, okay, maybe I need to deal with that. I need to look at why that's happening, because it's just so easy, like takeout, isn't it? You're just going to the doctor and you're going, here's all what's wrong with me. There you go. You sort it out for me.
Yeah, I think as well, what's really interesting is that these are ancient practices with hundreds and hundreds of years of evidence behind them, and yet they're called pseudoscience, and everything else is just, this works because you can take a tablet and get rid of it, when really, like you say, it's just putting a plaster on it.
Yeah, but society is actually it's part of the culture now. I was watching a BBC program, and this guy would set up in a particular practice, in a GP practice in London, and he said, okay, instead of giving each person 5 minutes with the GP, I'll set up upstairs and I'll give people 20 minutes, an hour, just to talk about their stuff. So we sat in with the doctor, and patients were actually asking for medication, antidepressants, anti-anxiety, painkillers, whatever. So the doctor was saying, well, maybe we could go, and the people themselves were asking for the quick fix. And when they were offered, a long time with a doctor, most of them didn't want to know. So it's not just the doctors that are pushing the agenda. As a society, as a nation, we just want a quick fix. Look, I just, I've got to get on with my day.
We've become conditioned to want a quick fix for everything and not want to hold on to any responsibility for anything either.
Correct.
I think that is where the problem is. The system's broken, but also as human beings, we've become damaged, and we need to repair that damage. And the only way to do that is to tap into our own consciousness, soul, and ask ourselves how we can heal ourselves. Because by healing ourselves individually, we're healing the collective. And this is like saying about the ocean, and realizing that as the energy, we're all connected. If we all start to level up and raise our awareness of what of everything, and I can speak from experience of having multiple health issues, some of which you have to constantly look back on and think, is some of this psychological? Is some of this my own doing? And I'm not saying that anybody that's ill, don't obviously take that the wrong way, that it's their own doing. I'm saying that sometimes the somatic result of dis-ease or disharmony within the mind can create that dis-ease in the body.
Well, from a yogic perspective, everything in the physical world first starts in the energetic realm. It has in the larger field. So from a yogic perspective, particularly if you're talking about the chakras, what they'll say is, okay, if you have a chest infection, for example, then what's actually happened is there's an energetic root cause to that. So there'll be an emotional root cause. So something will have happened to the energy flowing around the heart, or not. It's gone offline. The energy isn't flowing as it should. What is the cause of that? So the cause, if you look back, okay, well, my mother died, for example. And the heart has shut down. And if you don't deal with the grief, if you're suppressing it because you've got to get on with the day, you've got to go to work, you've got to look after the kids, and it stays stuck, the stuckness then stops the flow of energy. It's literally gone offline.
That creates a weakness then in that particular area, which is when any kind of virus or bacteria is going to go to your weakened areas, isn't it?
Well, eventually, if it's not getting the energy, then it's like the wilting flower. It's not circulating. So the organs that prana, that life force energy is supplying, is the health is going to deteriorate in that particular organ that this chakra is supplying, in which case it's the heart and lungs. So we might get a chest infection. Similarly, if somebody's got a persistent cough, you know, you'd be looking, okay, what's the root cause of that in an energetic perspective? Because the fifth chakra, the Vishuddhi chakra, is all about communication. So if somebody, you know, speaks the truth, they speak up for themselves, they're a good listener, they communicate well, they're honest, no problem here. But if somebody's a persistent liar, they interrupt, they gossip, they're a poor listener, they speak half truths, or they gossip, or they don't speak up at all, you know, then the energy here is not flowing as it should. So there could be ear issues, there could be throat issues, persistent cough, something like that, because there's an energetic cause which then blocks the energy, literally choking the energy to this, you know, it's supplying the neck, the throat, and the ears, this chakra here. And so those organs that it supplies is then not getting the life force energy. So now it's like the wilting flower. It's going to now result, it's going to manifest in a physical symptom. You go to the doctor, you'll get some cough medicine, right? But that's just, again, masking the symptoms. What is the cause long term? We need to look much deeper than what we've been doing. Western medicine,
we're only looking in our own environments, aren't we, instead of looking more in a more expansive way. Like most people would just think, oh, well, I caught a virus, you know. But yes, that is true. You probably did catch a virus, but you probably caught a virus, and then because you were weakened in that area, it developed into something perhaps more than it may have done. Your immune system may have been able to kick in and fight that off had you have been functioning on optimum level.
Well, that's the interesting thing, isn't it? Because some people have weaknesses in certain areas. You can catch the same virus 100%. In the same house, but someone's got an issue with their throat, someone's got it on their chest, someone's got it with in their sinuses and their nose.
Someone gets really stomach upset.
Yeah.
And you know, it's also to do with their belief. Interestingly enough, I never sort of bought into the COVID thing, and I never had the vaccine, refused to have that. And interesting enough, there's loads of evidence now coming that a natural immunity, it's out there now. In fact, I posted a YouTube clip from a doctor yesterday on my Facebook page regarding the studies that are coming out saying now natural immunity is 13 to 27 times better than the vaccines. It's out there now, you know, actual studies. But you know, it's I think a lot is to do with your belief. I didn't buy into the collective fear, consciousness of fear that was surrounding COVID. And I actually got COVID in April of last year, April 2022. And that was at the time I finished with my 9-year relationship at the end of March.
So you were dealing with loss.
Yeah, and I was dealing with loss.
And that can affect the lungs and the heart, can't it?
Exactly. Exactly.
It affects the heart.
Exactly. And I got COVID, interestingly enough. But, you know, I was in bed for a day and then I was back up again. I kind of bounced back pretty quickly. And again, it's a state of mind and it's a belief. So I think that the biology of belief, you know, people like Dr. Bruce Lipton, you know, one of my favorite presenters, writers, authors, you know, he writes the whole thing on biology of belief and talks about the placebo effect, which is
Joe Dispenza does that as well, doesn't he? He talks about that also.
Exactly. And actually the nocebo effect. So if you have a negative belief about yourself, you know, oh, I'm going to get COVID, or, you know, if you have a diagnosis of cancer, maybe you think, oh, I'm going to die. Then that's a nocebo effect. And it's just
affects your actual progress on that journey, doesn't it? 100%.
100%. There's no question. The belief behind it is one of the most powerful things. And again, something that I've learned as well, we just literally have not got any energy to give any energy to negativity. And that kind of ties in with the law of attraction. You know, what you think, or in the words of Louise Hay, You know, every word you speak
Yeah.
is an affirmation.
There's actually a really interesting book written by a lady called Candice. I can't remember her surname there, but it's called Molecules of Emotion.
I've got it,
Oh,
yes.
we've got it. Yeah, it's a really interesting book. I can't remember her surname, but she talks about how every molecule of every cell has a consciousness in our body. So
Yeah.
everything is literally communicating with each other. So
Absolutely.
that makes complete sense. If we're talking to ourselves in a certain way,
Yeah,
cells will respond in accordance to that frequency
Yeah.
that we're radiating out.
yeah.
You know, the heart's a magnet, isn't it? And the mind is, you know, what you're putting out there. So you're putting it out there from your mind, and the heart's attracting what the mind is telling it. So if that's the vibration that you're resonating on, that's what you're attracting into your life.
That's right. We're all vibrating, you know, and whatever, it's like we're all like magnets. We'll vibe with people on the same level, the same vibration as us. You know, and what you put out there, your universe is indifferent, no good, no bad, no right, no wrong. It's like a boomerang, like karma. You're putting something out there, and it's going to come back to you in the form of an experience, whether that experience is good or bad, according to what your thoughts are. Your thoughts are constantly creating your reality. You haven't got time to have a negative thought. And what people don't realize about the law of attraction, and this is why it doesn't work for a lot of people sometimes, is that you can have a conscious and you can consciously say, like, an affirmation, you know, like I'm healthy, fit and well. Let's say if that was your affirmation because you had some serious illness, or you were recovering from cancer. If you're consciously thinking and saying so many times a day, I'm healthy, fit and well, but you don't believe it, then actually that has a detrimental effect, and studies have supported that. You can look at the studies online. So they say if you don't believe it, you know, the biology of belief, if it's not in the realm of your belief system, you're not going to accept it, you're going to reject it. That's going to make you feel worse. So they say to insert the word choose. I choose to be fit, healthy and well, and that's somehow acceptable to us. But what people don't realize is you might consciously say whatever words, I'm financially abundant, but maybe you're not, maybe you're in debt, right? But you want to be, so you bring it into the present tense. You know, you have to say it in a positive language, which is what we're told for the affirmations. Present tense, positive language, say it as if it's already happened. But if we're vibing, you know, oh God, I'm really, you know, I've got loads of debt. And that's our vibration. Now, we don't not necessarily know our vibration, right? It's a subconscious thing. And sub meaning below, it's below consciousness. We don't realize that that's happening. So consciously saying the words, but the vibe of the subconscious is completely different. And that is what the law of attraction will respond to, the vibration. And we're vibration of fear, financial fear, regardless of what words we speak.
And that's another reason why it's so important to keep coming back to that stillness, that space where you're getting to understand what your consciousness is really saying. You know, what is your subconscious trying to communicate with you, and trying to, you know, make that and adjust that to what you want it to be.
And how do you do that? How do you realize what is going on in the subconscious? Well, you got to stop the mind chatter, you know, like shaking up those snow globes and then all the snow kind of, that's the thoughts.
That's
you know,
a great analogy, actually. That's a great analogy.
Exactly. And 60,000 to 90,000 thoughts we have every day, most of which are the same the day before, the day before that, the day before that. To have that snow subside, you got to sit still. But this is what's hard for people, right? They think they have this image in their head. They're going to sit still. Their mind is going to be clear and it's going to be bliss. No, it's not. The opposite's going to happen. You sit still and those thoughts are going to come in. And that's when people get jumpy. They get
uncomfortable.
You know, they get bored. It's not happening. I'm not enlightened in 15 minutes. You know, I need gratification. It's not happening. I need it now. I need it next month, next week. You know, they don't put the work in. They don't put the effort in. They get frustrated. They want it now. Or there's the washing to do, the ironing. There's always something better to do. Or they fall asleep, or their mind just wanders. And then those initial experiences put people off. They think,
Yeah,
oh, I can't do
100%.
it. I can't meditate. Well, you've tried for a week, for a month?
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's a
this is the
discipline, isn't
conversation
it?
we had the other day.
We had this exact conversation, didn't we?
Yeah.
About she really
It's
struggles with it. And I said this exact thing to her. I said, you have to set aside time for yourself. You have to make that commitment to self-love, and to stick with it. It's a discipline. You're not just going to learn it in a few days, in a few weeks.
What
It's
I
going to
found
take years.
interesting as well, Emma, is that even you, with all of the things that you've done and learned, you still were saying earlier, you know, I could do more of this, I could do more of the breath work, I could do more time aside to do this and that.
Always.
And then, you know, you've got me who's not even started yet, and it can seem so overwhelming to get started, but you're still thinking of how you can improve. I think that's the main thing to take away from that, is that it's a journey. It's never just a quick fix with anything. And at the moment, our culture is such an instant gratification culture as well, constantly wanting things now.
Yesterday,
You want to just start and be like, oh, I'm enlightened, and you know, I eat healthy, and I do yoga, and I'm doing really well for myself. It's a journey. You've got to take it one step at a time.
We're constantly living in the future, aren't we? Instead of living in the present moment, where the gifts are. It's the present moment where the gifts are, you know.
It is. And the mind, you know, that's what we're trying to, the goal of yoga is to master the mind, really, you know, and know that you're bigger than your mind. That isn't who you are. I'm not this mind. I'm not this body. I'm this consciousness. I'm this awareness that is watching behind the closed eyes, knowing, hearing all this stuff. I am that awareness. I am that tatwamasi. To learn to understand that. And, you know, the minute, you know, it's a lifelong journey. The minute you think you're enlightened, it's game over, you know. Just
and I think people that don't take on the continued professional development, I think that's ego, isn't it? Because we never stop learning. And I think that is, you know, ultimately where we should all be constantly wanting to just learn more and learn more and learn more all the time. Because you're never at the finishing point until you're dead, are you? And that's the reality, you know. And even then, you're not. It's just the end of this physical form that the energy
transforms. Dies.
Exactly.
Yeah, physical form dies. The soul goes on to its next physical vehicle. You know, the next body incarnation on this earth, starting from, you know, a point where you kind of left off. So we're constantly evolving.
And it's interesting because when we were speaking to a lady on a couple of podcasts before, Pam Good, when we was talking, she's an astrologer, we was talking about how our destiny and our soul's path is about constantly evolving and ascending, and it's certain parts in the birth chart that show us where our soul's destiny for this particular life experience is. And when I was looking at your birth chart, yours is in your 10th house. And it's in Pisces, which obviously is one of the most spiritual signs of the zodiac. So, and the 10th house is what governs work and how the world sees us, and the energy that we put out into the world. So, and your actual north node axis, which is like the energy that it's kind of emanating between, is the 10th house of Pisces, and then in the 4th house of Virgo, which is moving away. So that would be your south node, where Virgo is, and that's kind of the where you're coming from now. But where you're needing to go is into your north node of Pisces, which is where you're already heading and where you're already going. So you're completely on your access to destiny of where you're supposed to be going. And, you know, your south node is in Virgo, which is where that perfectionist traits come from. Sometimes always wanting to, you know, do better. Exactly. And your Pisces is the unconditional love, the self-sacrificing, the healing, the spirituality. You know, it's ruled by Neptune, and you've actually got Neptune transiting your 10th house at the moment as well. So and Neptune is the planet of spirituality. It's a very spiritual planet, and obviously you've just been to India and doing lots of spiritual work. So that's really, really positive. And you've also got in your 6th house of work, Sagittarius is your main placement, which again is ruled by Jupiter, but that again is a very philosophical master teacher, guru energy. So that's in your everyday work life. So you've got those amazing spiritual placements in your chart, which shows me, looking at that you're really you know, geared up to be in the right position for your North Node kind of destiny, where you're heading. You're going in the right direction, and that's all because you're following your higher self, and you're tapping into that, you know, unconscious part of yourself, your soul, you know.
Great. I mean, I was told that, you know, to take it to the next level, write a book. I said, funny enough, I've been trying to do that.
Yeah, well, it's definitely in your chart as well for book writing also, that definitely.
Brilliant. Well,
Yeah.
I feel like I want to open some kind of organization, some kind of center,
Yeah.
some kind of foundation where people can, you know, like some kind of ashram. I don't know. It's something like that. I need to sort of take it to the next level. Because I need to feed my soul, and I need to have like a massive urge to help.
Yeah, and that's your Pisces North Node, you see.
Yeah.
That is the
urge.
ultimate, you know, caring and sacrificing for other people, and you know, they are the healers of the world, you know, and that, you know, that's your moon is also placed there as well. So it's the moon is your natal moon, so it's the true essence of who you are, you know, is placed in that same position next to, almost conjunct, your North Node. So you're really following your heart's true purpose and soul's purpose, and I'm sure that you feel that. But just for your own knowledge, to say that it's in your birth chart, which I believe so truly to be the blueprint of our souls, the incarnation of our soul of each lifetime. It's saying that it's written there. It's in black and white, you know.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, I mean, I do feel, I feel like since I came back, I just feel kind of flat, directionless. You know, I'm kind of, there's a level of frustration, you know, going in and doing the usual day-to-day classes. You know, people are lovely, but it's not feeding my soul.
Yeah, and we need that, don't we? We need that soul. We need to be feeding our souls 100%.
We do. And, you know, one of the things I've started to do, you know, with private clients now, because, you know, we're talking about the conscious and the subconscious, what people say and what people actually mean, or what they don't say, is what resides in the subconscious. So a very quick diagnostic tool now that I'm doing with people, and honestly, I was doing it with one of my yoga teacher trainers, and we went through all the 7 chakras with the dowsing pendulum, which tells me which chakras are in balance, which are partially blocked, and which are balanced. And we went through each chakra, and I said, okay, so the first one is out. That's to do with, you know, stability, safety, security. So if it's out, you get the opposite. You get insecurity. You know, you're fearful, you know, you're unstable, you're not grounded, you know. And she's telling me a story about herself with each chakra. So I'm saying this second one is out. It's all about the feelings and the emotions. So it's about letting go, going with the flow. I said, are you holding on to emotions? You know, it's also to do with sensuality, sexuality, fertility, intimacy. You know, there was an issue with a boyfriend and cheating. You know, we went to the third, her chakra of personal power, self-belief, confidence. That was out. She'd lost her self-confidence because of what had been going on with the boyfriend. The heart was blocked. I said, oh, is that because of the boyfriend? She said, no, this is because her dad had left them when they were young, but he'd chosen for some reason to keep in touch with her sister more than her. So she was feeling a lot of resentment towards him. So that was blocked. The throat was then blocked. I said, are you verbalizing that resentment? Are you speaking up against your boyfriend, against your dad? Are you saying what you really mean? Are you being honest? And that's why this was out. The spiritual hub was out. I mean, the whole thing. She had a full house.
And that's the thing, isn't it? When it's one thing's disaligned, it can reverberate through the whole system. You know, the foundations are wobbly, you know.
So the whole thing, the whole energy was off. And interestingly enough, I've been teaching these girls for maybe 5 months. and I didn't really know anything about them. We would have 3-hour sessions together while they were doing some face-to-face training. And in 5 months, I didn't really know who she was, but I'm telling you, this took 20 minutes just to douse the whole energy system. And I knew more about her in 20 minutes just from the pendulum than in 5 months. And I said, you know what? I said, you could have gone to a counselor for 10 sessions and you might not have got all of that information out. I said, this is the power. So now, you know, whatever anybody says, you know, whether they think consciously, oh, I'm over that. Well, your subconscious is saying, actually, you're not.
Yeah.
It's kind of, it's what you're vibing, and people don't always realize that, or they lie to themselves. And so it's like a diagnostic tool. What is out? Okay, so if we balance because you're holding resentment, okay, so I can balance the energy here. But if you go away from here and you constantly whinging and moaning and seething with resentment towards your ex, you know, for the way he treated you, then it's just going to get blocked again. You know, so you need to do some forgiveness work. You need to do maybe a fire ceremony, you know, perform a letting go, burn an effigy in the fire, or you need to, you know, write your wish list at the full moon. And burn your list of what you want to let go of. You need to let go because you need to move on, because this
cutting or something. Some people need a bit of help to get there, don't they? They find people do it themselves, and they sometimes need a bit of help to get there. And there's some wonderful practitioners out there that can help facilitate that and help, you know, as well as counsellors, because obviously there is a place for counselling also. Some people, you know, it takes them a bit of time to get to that place where they're willing to own their stuff, you know, and let go of it and let wings. I could talk to you all day, Emma. I could literally sit here and talk to you all day, honestly.
It's such a vast subject, right?
It's such a vast subject, and maybe at a later date, when I know you're such a busy lady, that maybe you could come on and we could talk about something else at a later date as well, because there's just so much wisdom there for you to share with people. I know you've written a few ebooks, haven't you, as well? So people can access that via your website, can they, if they wanted to?
There's not ebooks. I haven't got any ebooks because at the moment all my stuff is really relating to instructor training.
Right. Okay.
But, I am, and thanks for inviting me on this podcast. It's kind of spurred me to put my fulfillment recipe, which is, you know, the 8-week course, is to maybe put that online as a podcast.
Yeah, I think you should.
Yeah, which will help other people. So it's been on my list for a long time, but like anything, you know, if I divide myself into 10 people,
I know you're very busy, and it is hard to try and fit everything in, isn't it? But I think it'd be wonderful for you to do the podcasting. I think that
I would definitely listen to
and I would definitely listen to it as well, you know. So I think that would be a wonderful thing for you to do. And there's so much wisdom there of all the years you've worked in the field, not just with the physical body, but as we've just discussed today, there's so much more to it than just yoga. You know, it is a way of being, it's a way of living, and it's a way of, you know, connecting to the divine consciousness.
Correct. Yeah.
And we're so grateful for your time. I mean, is there anything that you could leave us with, like as for example, some books or some downloadables that you would recommend for anybody to use?
Yeah, there's a guy called James Nestor. It's a New York Times bestseller. It's called Breathe. It's a revelation for many people, which is why it's a bestseller. The one I've been reading at the moment, and probably the one that directly relates to kind of the thing that we're talking about beings of energy, and it ties it in with the chakra system. And she's a doctor and she's a yogi as well. Again, this is a bestseller. It's called The Energy Codes, and that's by Dr. Sue Morter. Morter. So that's the one I would recommend. And of course the usual Dr. Joe Dispenza, Becoming Supernatural. That is probably one of my top books. Really.
I'm reading The Placebo at the moment. I wrote it before a few years ago, but I lost it, and I thought, well, I'm going to reread it again, you know. So I think sometimes it's good to go back to the beginning and redo things. But I appreciate those.
One last bit. If there's any bit of your readers had trauma in their lives, there's a book called What Happened to You. by Dr. Bruce Perry. He's one of Oprah Winfrey's advisors, you know, for the last 30 years or so, a specialist on trauma. And When the Body Says No by Dr. Gabor Mate. Any of Gabor Mate's stuff is really good. They're kind of my top books at the moment. Oh yeah, sorry, I'm going to add one.
Yeah, go on.
It's a brilliant one. Talking about letting go. I think it's Dr. David R. Hawkins. You can get all these on audiobooks as well. It's called Letting Go, and it literally has a chapter on every emotion: grief, anger, fear.
We'll write all of these and leave them.
We'll leave them in the descriptions.
I think
including your website, including links to your studio, and obviously I know you do some online learning and teaching as well, don't you? So anyone who's interested in coming to see Emma for any of those things, I would highly recommend her. I've been on, one of her fulfillment recipes, which was fantastic, and she gratefully donated that to me for free. Last year when I was very unwell and in a really bad place emotionally as well, and I really needed it at that time, and you graciously helped me with that, and I will be forever grateful, because it really did help me, because I was really struggling with my anxiety at that point, and it was a real lifeline. So I would highly recommend Emma's work, and wanted to just thank you so much for giving your time, coming on here and talking with us. I know we had a little bit of a technical thing to start with at the beginning, right? But it's been lovely having you, and we'll definitely would love you to come on at another time when you're not too busy.
For our last thing to leave us with, what's one thing that our listeners could do today to start their journey if they wanted to sort of get into yoga? What would you recommend? First thing to do?
I would say learn to sit still and just breathe. Contact with your breath. Remember, yoga is a physical practice in the West, but actually in reality, it's all about the mind. And if you can control the mind and be in the now and the present moment, which is the only moment we have, that's a really good place to start. Meditation for a lot of people is more of an advanced practice. If you can just sit down and connect with your breath, and bring yourself, that snow globe, all the mental chatter down, and a good practice is your square breathing, your box breathing, which is the number one breath to reduce stress and to reduce anxiety being a massive problem today, particularly with young people. So you would sit down 10 minutes per day. You can do it once or twice a day, and you breathe in for a count of 4. You hold the breath in for a count of 4, you exhale for a count of 4, and you hold the breath out for a count of 4. Box breathing. So 16 counts for one breath cycle. Inhale through the nose for 4, hold the breath in for 4, exhale through the nose for 4, hold the breath out for 4. 10 minutes brings you into the now, calms down the nervous system, reduces stress, reduces anxiety, gets you in touch with the deeper aspect of you. Just start with 10 minutes a day. See what happens. Your day starts to flow. It starts with breath. You are the breath. Breath is consciousness. Breath is spirit. It is the real you.
Yeah. So it's just breathe.
Just breathe.
Hence book recommendation, Breath by James Nestor. A great book.
Amazing.
Thank you, Emma.
So much, Emma.
Lovely to have you on.
Thanks for asking as well.
No problem. You take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.